Okay, hear me out. We've always been told that the Poneglyphs are this super serious, untouchable record of history, carved by the Kozuki clan, unbreakable, forbidden to read, holding the secrets of the Void Century. Everyone treats them like the ultimate truth. But what if they're not? What if some of what we've been trusting is actually a story designed to trick us? That maybe the history we think is real isn't real at all? Today we're diving into this wild idea that the Poneglyphs themselves could be a lie, and by the end of this, you might start looking at those ancient stones a whole different way. Alright, before we jump into all the wild theories, let's make sure we're clear on what we actually know about the Poneglyphs. First off, these stones were carved by the Kozuki clan. That's canon. They wanted to preserve the history of the Void Century, stuff the world government definitely didn't want anyone to remember. And these things, they're basically indestructible. Explosions, battles, you name it, the stones don't budge. Then there's the language. It's this ancient script almost no one can read. Nico Robin can obviously, and maybe a handful of others, but it's not like you just pick it up at school. And here's the kicker. All these stones are supposed to add up to the true history, with the Rio Poneglyph acting as the ultimate compilation. But the world government doesn't want anyone poking around. They've literally wiped out scholars just for trying to study them. That part alone makes you wonder why they're so scared. What's on those stones that could be that dangerous? So yeah, that's the baseline. What we know is solid, but as we'll see, the gap between what's carved in stone and what's actually true might be bigger than anyone thinks. So why do people even think the Poneglyphs could be lying? Well, it's actually not that crazy when you think about it. In real life, history is often written by the winners, right? The people in power get to shape the story, decide what's remembered, and what's conveniently forgotten. Now imagine that in the One Piece world. The world government has been around for hundreds of years, and they've got every reason to hide some truths about the Void Century. Maybe they've even gone as far as sneaking in stones that make them look less guilty or keep certain secrets buried. And it's not just speculation. The manga already shows us how extreme they get. Scholars who study the stones are literally hunted down. Ohara is proof of that. That kind of reaction? That's exactly the kind of thing you'd expect if the stones could expose things the government wants buried. So the motive is there, and the precedent is there. It's not just fans imagining things. It actually fits the world Oda has built. Basically, if someone wanted to rewrite history, make the truth look safer, or control what future generations believe, the Poneglyphs are the perfect tool. And that's exactly why this theory has stuck around for so long. Alright, so if the Poneglyphs are lies, how would that even work? Well, think about it like this. Not every stone has to be 100% real. Some could have been forged, some might have been recarved later, and some could even be a mix. Half truth, half fake. That's the idea behind hybrid stones. For example, the Kozuki clan carved the originals, sure. But what if later someone, maybe the world government or even coerced allies, snuck in fake stones or altered the original messages? Because the stones are supposed to be indestructible, nobody's smashing them to check. That makes them the perfect hiding place for carefully planted propaganda. And it's not just fake stones. Even genuine stones could be tricky, the way you read them matters. Roger supposedly read all the stones, but he interpreted them through the voice of all things. That's already filtered. So the truth could have been twisted without anyone even realizing it. And by the time others read the stones, the lie is already baked in. Basically, there are a lot of ways deception could sneak in. Fake stones, edited inscriptions, selective info, and interpretation that bends the truth. And if you combine all of that, you get a system that looks rock solid, but could still be hiding major secrets. Here's where it gets really interesting. Even Roger, the guy who supposedly read all the Poneglyphs, didn't just copy everything word for word. He heard the voice of all things, which basically means he interpreted them. He understood the meaning behind the words, not just the letters. Yeah, he had Kazuki Oden too to interpret the stones, but that's huge because interpretation is never perfect. Think about it. If Roger could misinterpret something even slightly, that leaves room for stones to appear truthful while actually pushing a certain story. And if someone wanted to manipulate history, that's all they'd need. A clever twist here, a vague statement there, and suddenly future generations believe something that isn't exactly true. And it's not just Roger. Other prophets or rare people who can sense history or events might also be reading the stones through their own lens. So what we assume is solid, undeniable truth could actually be a filtered version of reality. The Poneglyphs might look absolute, but the way people interact with them, And the way history is interpreted opens the door for deception. Okay, now let's get into some of the juicier fan theory style stuff. One idea that pops up a lot is the dual poneglyph theory for the ancient weapons. The idea is that for each weapon, there could be two stones, one giving safe, surface-level info, like the name and general location, and another hidden one with the real, dangerous details. The obvious stone keeps the public safe, and the hidden stone carries the real history. Makes you wonder how much of what we've seen is just the public version. Then there are characters like Crocodile or Vanderdecken, who seem to know more than they should. How do they know about these weapons or certain legends if they didn't see the hidden stones? Maybe there's more out there than even the main characters have discovered. Even Reddit and forum threads bring up another interesting point. Not all stones might have been carved by the Kozuki clan. Some could have been later additions, or even planted by other powers trying to shape history. When you combine all of this, dual stones, selective knowledge, potential outside influence, it paints a picture of a system that looks foolproof, but could actually be carefully controlled and manipulated. And that's the wild part. Nothing here breaks canon. The stones still exist, still resist destruction, and the Kozuki are still credited. But underneath that surface, there might be layers we haven't even begun to uncover. Alright, now let's play devil's advocate for a second. Not everyone buys the idea that the poneglyphs could be lies, and there are some solid reasons why. First off, canon clearly says the Kozuki clan carved them. That's a fact. So how could they be fake? Well, the theory pushes back by saying maybe the Kozuki were forced to go along with it, or maybe later redactors added stones under the guise of authenticity. The original carving could still be real, but some inscriptions might have been tampered with. Then there's the whole indestructible stones thing. If they can't be broken, how could anyone have altered them? True, but keep in mind, that only prevents physical damage. The lie could have been planted when they were first carved, or new stones could have been inserted to look legitimate. And remember, indestructible might even be a slight exaggeration in-world. Oda likes to make things feel epic. Another big objection is that Oda tends to reward consistency. If he wanted to hide a giant lie in the foundation of history, he'd foreshadow it carefully. And that's exactly what the theory leans on. Subtle hints, inconsistencies, and selective information that encourage fans to question what's being presented. Finally, some point out that the Kozuki descendants would probably notice and correct any fake stones. But the counter-argument is that if a conspiracy is well hidden and has survived centuries, the descendants could either be unaware, complicit, or prevented from acting. History could have been tightly controlled without anyone realizing the manipulation. So yeah, the theory isn't ironclad, but it survives by addressing these objections with plausible in-world reasoning. Okay, now let's talk about the stuff that actually makes this theory feel real. The clues that hint the poneglyphs might not be the whole story. First up, the fact that even Roger, the Pirate King, had to interpret the stones. He didn't just read them, he heard their meaning. That alone tells us the truth from the stones is already filtered, which is prime real estate for manipulation. Then there's the whole forbidden knowledge angle. Scholars who try to study the stones are hunted down or wiped out. The Ohara incident wasn't just an accident. The government clearly freaks out over what the stones reveal. If the truth was totally safe, why go to such extreme lengths? That's a huge red flag. Also, pay attention to the content of the stones themselves. Some of them only give names or locations, not full stories. That's exactly what you'd expect if someone wanted to hide the dangerous stuff while still making it look informative. Finally, keep an eye on characters who seem to know more than they should. Crocodile, Vanderdecken, and others who have insights that don't fully line up with what the public stones say. That suggests there might be other stones, hidden inscriptions, or alternate sources of information that we haven't seen yet. All these little hints don't scream fake stones outright, but together they paint a picture that something deeper, something carefully concealed, could be going on. So, after looking at all this, canon, theory, and the hints scattered throughout the world, where does that leave us? Honestly, it's hard to say anything for sure, but the pieces line up in a way that makes the poneglyphs are a lie theory pretty believable. The stones exist, they're indestructible, and the Kozuki clan definitely carved many of them. But when you add in the filtered interpretation, the extreme measures the world government takes to suppress knowledge, the selective content of some stones, and the odd knowledge some characters seem to have, it all points toward the possibility that the history we see isn't the full picture. We might be looking at a system designed to protect the dangerous truth, while still letting people think they know it. The truth could be hidden in layers, behind dual stones, vague inscriptions, or interpretations that subtly guide what we believe. And honestly, that's what makes it so fascinating. The Poneglyphs feel solid and trustworthy, but if even a fraction of them are bent or rewritten, it changes everything we think we know about history in One Piece. Now here's where I want you to think. What if the Poneglyphs really aren't telling the full truth? What would that mean for the Void Century, the ancient weapons, or even the final story of One Piece? Could some of the secrets we've been chasing for years be hiding in plain sight, disguised as truth on stone? I want to hear your thoughts. Which Poneglyphs do you think could be the tricky ones? Are there characters who might be holding pieces of the real story we haven't even guessed? And if the world government really did rewrite history, how far does that deception go? Keep watching the manga. Pay attention to every stone, every clue, and every character who seems to know more than they should. The next big reveal could be right around the corner, and when it drops, the theory that the Poneglyphs are a lie might just go from speculation to fact. So, stick with me. We're only scratching the surface here, and the deeper we dig, the crazier it gets.